So there's been a lot of talk about Morgan Wallen and this contract suspension. Unless you've been under a rock, you've probably heard that country star Morgan Wallen was recently, quote unquote, suspended by his label after he was caught on camera using a racial slur. Well, a lot of my students, a lot of my clients have been asking me, why didn't the label just drop him, right? Why did they suspend him? So just want to be clear about what's going on here. When you have a contract, you can, if something happens, like sometimes there's a morality clause or something, if somebody does something that can be damaging to the label, often the label can either just terminate the contract, which just means to end it, right? Or sometimes they'll put a clause in there, which has happened. It's actually a suspension clause. So, just to be clear, this isn't like a suspension like being put in timeout. It's a suspension. It's a legal term. So suspending the contract is just pausing the contract. You get into a contract. The contract is 5 years long. Say 2 years into the contract, you do something, crazy, and then, the company suspends you, right? They enforce the suspension clause. Well, if that happens, there are 3 years left in the contract. So instead of like the clock running and say they shelve you, and that 3 years just runs off the contract, they pause it so that when everything, picks back up, they can start it back and they still have those 3 years left in the contract, right? So that's really what's happening. So a lot of people are looking at this and saying, hey, like, this is just a business decision. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a business decision, right? If you look at where Morgan Wallen was, I believe when everything went down, I believe he had the top 5, or he had 5 of the top 10 Hot 100 country songs on the chart. I think his album had been number 1 for 3 weeks straight. And even after it happened, even though radio pulled him, his album sales like shot up. Right. So it makes sense, from a business standpoint, for the label to just suspend it, because they have, put a huge investment, in his career. And they don't, necessarily want to see that go down the drain. Right now, again, a lot of people are saying, well, that means that this move is insincere. Right. And if they really want to take a stance, they should just drop them. I'm not going to agree or disagree with that at this point. But I did kind of want to, something else. I did want to bring up something else I've been kind of thinking about. If they would have dropped him, yeah, I mean, they would have lost out on their investment. But if they would have dropped him, he would have been able to go, somewhere else, say to another label, not been forced to think about it at all, not been forced to have these hard conversations that he's probably going to have, to have pretty soon, and not have been forced to really think about, kind of the impact of, using that racial slur, right? If he was terminated, somebody else would just, pick him up. I'm pretty sure, just because we see what the climate has been as far as, different reactions, mixed reactions. So I'm sure there would have been somebody out there to pick him up. But the thing is now, because the contract is suspended, he's still on his label. And this is really forcing him, to take time to really think about what happened and what's going on. So I don't think necessarily that, a suspension is all bad or should just be seen, purely as a business move. I don't think that that's all there is to it. So, when you get a contract, you want to make sure that you look and see if there's a suspension clause in there, because, that can, as an artist, that can play a big role in what you're able to do. If your label decides, that they need to, kind of shelve you or put you to the side, you want to know, is there anything in particular that trips that suspension clause? Or is there a way to get out of the contract, if you and the label kind of butt heads on something. Thanks for watching the Music Business Minute. If you like what you saw, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We'd love to know what you want to hear about next.